Welcome back. As we promised, we are going to shed more light on the Cairo Peace Summit, which took place yesterday, and with the participation of world leaders, heads of governments, foreign ministers, representatives of international organizations, and of course, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi inaugurated the summit with a very important speech, in addition to a speech by most of the attendees. We are very much delighted to have with us via phone His Excellency Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former Assistant Foreign Minister, to continue with analyzing what happened yesterday and the results of the summit. A very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you, sir. Let's start with the speech of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, as the president in his speech conveyed a number of messages. On top of the messages is the liquidation of the Palestinian cause without a just solution is beyond real possibility, and in all cases it will never happen at the expense of Egypt. Would you please, sir, I'd like to elaborate on that.
This is a very important point, and I hope it is very clear to everybody that nobody can ask us to let the Palestinians leave their country and to invite Jewish people from Russia, from America, from Europe, where their grandfather have never seen Palestine. It is a sort of a joke that once I told an Israeli high official that if you are celebrating the memories of Prophet Musa and the Jew who left Egypt by that time, they were Egyptians. Prophet Musa was born in Egypt, and your population now, which is coming from Russia or America or Europe, have never seen our land, and their grandfather have never seen our land. So it is a sort of establishing a position based on a lie, and they want to believe this lie.
Amen.
We will never accept it, and of course Egypt is not any country. We are proud of our country, and we once refused to give them 600 meters of Taba, and we spent a long time until we restored it. So we shall not sacrifice our land for any reason for Israel.
Amen to that. And sir, the president was keen to clarify the great difference between hosting here 9 million guests, as we do not call them refugees, because of some security problems in their own countries, and after these security problems end, they are going to return back. There is a great difference between having refugees temporarily and what is meant by evacuating more than 1 million Palestinians to the borders with Egypt. How do you see the great difference between both cases?
You are absolutely right, and Egypt is appreciated by its partners, especially in Europe, that we are dealing with the migration problem without annoying any other neighbor. Because take Turkey, who send many refugees from Syria to Europe, and everybody is not happy about that. We are, as you rightly said, hosting 9 million guests from many countries, and we never make them or make them available for illegal migration. This is a sort of a position which is appreciated by our partners in Europe and else. It's quite clear that there's a big difference between hosting a guest or giving a piece of land to establish a country for foreigners, not have any right on this piece of land. We will never make this available.
Let me take you, sir, if you permit me, to the speech of the Jordanian King Abdullah II, who also mentioned the very same issue, that the liquidation of the Palestinian cause is out of question, and this was repeated whether in the speeches of Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas or Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed Shaya al-Sudani. How do you see, taking all the time into consideration that this point should be clear in front of the whole world by most, if not all, the Arab leaders who attended the summit yesterday?
What His Royal Highness the King Abdullah said yesterday is what some friends of Israel are saying. What are you going to do with this land? And if you go to the magazine Economist, they said that they're establishing ghost houses. They build houses hoping that a Jewish community will come to occupy it without seeing any serious migration nowadays to Israel. On the contrary, there is a sort of a negative migration where some of those who went to Israel discover that it is a big joke and they return back to their own countries. So what are you going to do with all this land? You cannot occupy it. You don't have population enough to occupy it. And the threat is that one day the Palestinians will outnumber and exceed the number of the Jews in Palestine. Then what are they going to do? And the sign now is quite clear that the Arabs of Israel, they started to penetrate the Israeli organizations. We have members now, more than 10 members of the Knesset, the Israeli parliament. What are you going to do if the Palestinians became more and more? Because the birth rate on the Palestinian side is much more the birth rate of the Jewish people. That's why some very wise Jews, even in the United States, started to declare they do not agree on what Israel is doing nowadays.
There are many Jews all over the world, sir, whether in London, in Mexico, in New York, as you've kindly mentioned, in Sydney, in Australia. They said, do not talk, using us. If it's us, we are not going to agree with what you're doing. But, sir, let me focus on a certain point by Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed Shaya al-Sudani, when he said that the situation on the ground now would not be taking place if the UN resolutions were respected. And it seemed that he was referring to the many UN resolutions regarding the Israeli occupation and currently the illegal settlements, which is considered one of the very big obstacles in front of peace or in front of the return to the negotiating table or reviving the Middle East peace process. How do you see this point?
I see that Israel do not abide to the international law nor to the United Nations resolutions, especially the resolution of 1948, which established Israel and divided the map of Palestine between the Israelis and the Palestinians. They did not respect it, and they exceeded, occupy more land. They do not respect the agreement. They signed it themselves. They drafted it themselves. I'm talking here about the Oslo Agreement of 1993 between Rabin and Yasser Arafat. Why don't they honor their own signature? Nobody imposed such an agreement on them. Now they are greedy and they want more and more land without having enough people to occupy it. The reason is quite clear, that you don't have a government of majority. You have small extremist parties making a government, and on top of the government, a prime minister who is supposed to be in jail. And part of what the Israelis are doing is to cover this situation in order to avoid going to jail. Very funny situation, but we are suffering from this, and we have to live with this, with the Palestinian existence, with the Palestinian strong stand in their own land. And I am of those who believe that in one day Israel cannot continue like that.
Sir, when I was thinking about yesterday and about what was taking place in the past nearly 2 weeks, I felt that every statistics and history are saying so, by the way, it's not me. Every Israeli prime minister introduced himself to his people with a massacre. I mean, since 1948, since 1956, when the tripartite aggression took place, even here in Egypt, you would find Deir Yassin, Qana, Sabra and Shatila, Al-Aqsa, Al-Haram al-Ibrahimi in Al-Khalil, not Hebron, by the way. I prefer to say Al-Khalil, you name it. Whether inside Palestine or in Lebanon or even in Abu Zabal here in Egypt or Bahr al-Ba'ar in Egypt. These massacres can never be forgotten. So why we can be shocked with what's taking place on the ground? It's very repetitive, if you agree with me on that.
Yes, of course, and it is a war crimes, and the international community would never forget about it. It is that you have a sort of double standard policies from many countries, and they are in a position where they cannot find the right direction between their aim to establish Israel as the police of the area, as a country to stop the connection between the Arabs of the Mashriq and the Arab of the Maghreb, and to annoy us all the time. This is one task the West, America and the European imperialists are waiting from Israel, and that's why they cover all the crimes that you mentioned. Here we have to live with this, and we know that one day they cannot continue like that with the presence of our brothers in Palestine. And I think the Palestinians are doing fine. God help them. And we have to help their stand all over the
And also, according to Israel's history, it was not a coincidence that the only one prime minister who signed a peace deal or he went into negotiations and he signed Oslo treaty or accord, or I don't know how it should be called, Rabin, was assassinated. I mean, it's not a coincidence. It was not by chance.
Yes, this is a very important point. And even the one who were a little bit rational in Israel, they killed him.
Yes.
An Israeli terrorist killed his own prime minister. This shows you that the majority of these people are not abide to any legality or any law, and we have to continue dealing with them and give them whatever they deserve.
Sir, finally, let me take you to an important meeting which took place here in Cairo just a few days ago, when President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received American Secretary of State Blinken. And among the important warnings or messages which were sent by the President during his talks, he said that we should all work for this purpose, not to let any other partners interfere into this conflict, because this conflict, if it expanded to other places or including other partners, it would be catastrophic and it would lead the Middle East region into a chaotic situation can easily be out of control. But unfortunately, today, the U.S. sent a terminal high-altitude area defense system, and additional Patriot air defense missile system battalions to the Middle East in response to what they claimed recent attacks on U.S. troops. And they said they were bolstering defenses in the Middle East over what they called escalations by Iran and its allies. How do you see this development, which is taking place even as we speak?
Yes, we know that the United States is the largest supporter of Israel, and they support them with money, with the weapons, and now with the presence of two big pieces of their maritime forces. They will never stop doing that. And I'm not astonished. We should expect all of this, but we were trying through a wise and long process of negotiations, especially between Egypt and the United States, to convince them that this will not lead to anything for the favor of the interests of the United States, nor the favor of the Israelis themselves. It is unwise practice, and we have to live with this. But I'm quite sure about the position of our country, and at the end of the day, with a very strong stand from Egypt, from the Palestinian people, from Jordan, we shall win the case at the end of the day.
We all hope so. Well, sir, thank you very much for your input and have a very good day. We were very much delighted to have with us by phone His Excellency Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Right after the short break, we are going to return back with more, so stay tuned.